I still remember the night I decided to deceive Min-Soo, the infamous Korean Mafia boss. It was a chilly autumn evening, and I, Ji-Hyun, had just received a phone call from a trusted source, informing me about the horrific crimes Min-Soo's organization had committed. The thought of his ruthless power sent shivers down my spine, but I knew I had to act. I couldn't just sit back and let him continue to manipulate and hurt innocent people. As I stood in front of the mirror, I took a deep breath, and my determination solidified. I would pretend to fall in love with him, gain his trust, and then destroy him from the inside. The first time I met Min-Soo, I was struck by his charisma. He exuded an aura of confidence and control, and I could see why people feared him. I played the part of a shy and innocent woman, and he seemed to enjoy the challenge of winning me over. As we spent more time together, I discovered the depths of his power and the complexity of his character. He was calculating, intelligent, and had a network of loyal followers who would do anything for him. But despite his intimidating exterior, I caught glimpses of a vulnerable side, a side that he only revealed when he thought no one was watching. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself torn between my mission and my growing feelings for Min-Soo. I had never intended to develop real emotions for him, but the more I got to know him, the more I realized that he was not just a one-dimensional villain. He was a multifaceted person with a rich history, and his actions, although wrong, were motivated by a desire to protect his family and his people. I began to question my own morality and the true nature of my mission. Was I really doing the right thing by trying to destroy him? Or was I just perpetuating a cycle of violence and revenge? One evening, as we sat together in his luxurious penthouse apartment, Min-Soo turned to me with an intense gaze. "Ji-Hyun, I have to ask you something," he said, his voice low and husky. "What do you see when you look at me?" I felt a flutter in my chest as I met his eyes, trying to maintain my composure. "I see a man who is strong, intelligent, and passionate," I replied, trying to sound sincere. Min-Soo's expression softened, and he reached out to brush a strand of hair behind my ear. "You're the only one who has ever looked beyond my facade," he whispered, his breath sending shivers down my spine. In that moment, I felt a pang of guilt and uncertainty. Was I truly deceiving him, or was I falling for the man behind the mask? As the night wore on, we talked and laughed together, sharing stories and secrets. I found myself feeling more and more at ease in his presence, and my initial revulsion began to fade away. But every time I looked into his eyes, I was reminded of my mission and the lies I had told. I was trapped in a web of deception, and I didn't know how to escape. The tension between us was palpable, and I could feel the uncertainty hanging in the air like a challenge. As I stood up to leave, Min-Soo's hand on my arm stopped me, his touch sending a spark of electricity through my body. "Ji-Hyun," he said, his voice low and husky. "I think I'm falling for you." My heart skipped a beat as I looked into his eyes, and for a moment, I forgot about my mission, forgot about the lies, and forgot about the danger. All I could think about was the man in front of me, and the way he made me feel. As I smiled, trying to play it cool, I realized that I was in too deep, and that my feelings for Min-Soo were no longer just an act. I felt a sense of trepidation, knowing that I had to make a choice between my loyalty to my mission and my growing emotions for him. The room was filled with the soft glow of candlelight, and the sound of jazz music floated through the air. But all I could focus on was the man standing in front of me, his eyes burning with intensity. I knew that I had to be careful, that one wrong move could mean disaster. But as I looked into Min-Soo's eyes, I felt myself getting lost in their depths. The clock on the wall ticked away, marking the passage of time. But for me, time stood still, frozen in the moment, as I stood there, torn between my mission and my heart. The mansion's library was a sanctuary of quiet after the party's din, a place where the soft glow of table lamps and the musty scent of old books enveloped me in a sense of tranquility. Min-Soo had led me there, a hand resting lightly on the small of my back, saying he wanted to show me his favorite place. As we walked, The sound of our footsteps echoed off the floor-to-ceiling shelves, which were lined with leather-bound books that seemed to stretch up to the ceiling. The air was thick with the smell of old paper and sandalwood, a scent that was both familiar and comforting. He poured 2 glasses of amber whiskey, handing one to me as we sat down in the plush armchairs. "You were perfect tonight," he said, his voice low and smooth, like honey pouring over ice. "They all adored you." I smiled, taking a sip of the whiskey, feeling the liquid burn a path down my throat. It was a perfect performance, one that I had rehearsed and perfected over the weeks. But as I looked into Min-Soo's eyes, I felt a flutter in my chest, a sense of uncertainty that I couldn't quite explain. He gestured to a framed black-and-white photograph on the desk, a picture of a young boy standing in front of a tiny, weathered jjimjilbang in a narrow alley. The boy's smile was bright, but his clothes were patched and worn, a testament to the hardships he had faced. "That was my grandfather's place," Min-Soo said, his tone softening as he spoke. "I slept in the storage room. He worked 18 hours a day so I could go to school." He traced the edge of the frame with a finger, his eyes clouding over with memories. "Everything I have, I built for him. To prove the struggle was worth it." As he spoke, I felt a pang of emotion, a sense of connection to this man, who had risen from poverty to become one of the most powerful men in Seoul. The raw pride in his voice didn't sound like a lie, and for a moment, I forgot about the dossier I had memorized, the one that listed extortion, smuggling, and worse under his name. I set my glass down, the clink too loud in the quiet room, and looked at him with newfound curiosity. "It's a powerful story," I said, keeping my voice even. "You must miss him." Min-Soo's eyes locked onto mine, and for a moment, I felt like I was drowning in their depths. "Every day," he replied simply, his voice barely above a whisper. The hardness I had seen in other photos was gone, replaced by a weary fondness that made my heart ache. He taught me that real power isn't in taking, it's in providing, in making sure the people who depend on you never know that fear again. He took a step closer, his eyes burning with an intensity that made my skin prickle with awareness. "You understand that, don't you, Ji-Hyun? That need to protect what's yours?" My breath caught in my throat as I met his gaze, feeling like I was trapped in a web of my own making. I was the one who was supposed to be manipulating him, but in that moment, I felt like I was the one being disarmed. "I think I do," I whispered, my voice barely audible over the sound of my own heartbeat. For a second, I wasn't sure which version of me was answering, the persona I had crafted, or the real me, the one who was hidden beneath the lies and the deception. As the night wore on, I found myself lost in thought, replaying the evening's events over and over in my mind. I thought about the easy laughter I had shared with a renowned philanthropist who had spoken of Min-Soo's anonymous donations to charity. I thought about the respectful nod from an elderly former judge who had called him a man of his word. Each anecdote, each glance, was a thread that tangled the simple, monstrous image I had been sent to destroy. And as I stood before the bathroom mirror, wiping off my lipstick and staring at the woman underneath, I felt a sense of confusion wash over me. The plan was clear. Gain trust, find the proof, deliver him to ruin. But the man I was beginning to see didn't match the blueprint. The lies I told felt less like armor and more like a slowly tightening chain. I turned away from the mirror, my eyes scanning the extravagant guest room that Min-Soo had assigned me. The room was a testament to his wealth and influence, with its plush carpet and expensive artwork. But as I looked around, I felt a sense of disconnection, a sense of unease that I couldn't quite explain. I had come to weave a web for him, but tonight, with every genuine smile he offered, I felt the first sticky strands clinging to my own skin. And I couldn't help but wonder, what would happen when the web finally closed in? Would I be the one who would destroy him, or would I be the one who would be destroyed? The USB drive felt warm in my palm, almost alive, as I pressed it deeper into the hidden pocket of my jacket. I had been inside Min-Soo's private office for less than 4 minutes, but each second stretched like hours. The air smelled of expensive leather and his cologne, that familiar sandalwood scent I had grown used to during our dinners together. Now it made my stomach turn. I moved quickly through the files, scanning document after document, names, dates, locations, transactions that ran into the millions. But it was the photographs that stopped me cold. Faces of young women, their eyes hollow, their papers stamped with fake visas. Min-Soo's organization did not just deal in illegal goods. They dealt in people. I had suspected corruption, bribery, maybe even violence. But this was something else entirely. My hands shook as I copied the last file. I had what I needed, everything my handlers wanted. Evidence that would destroy Min-Soo's empire and put him behind bars for decades. This was supposed to feel like victory. Instead, I felt like I was drowning. I turned toward the door, and there he was. Min-Soo stood in the frame, his shoulders squared, his face unreadable. He wore a dark suit, perfectly tailored, the same one he had worn to dinner last night. Last night, when he had held my hand across the table and told me he had never trusted anyone the way he trusted me. Last night, when I had smiled and lied. "You are not who you said you were." His voice was flat, controlled, more frightening than any shout. I opened my mouth to deny it, but nothing came out. The USB drive felt like it was burning through the fabric of my jacket. Min-Soo stepped forward. The lights from the city outside caught the edge of his jaw, highlighting the tension in his neck. He stopped less than a meter away. I could see the veins in his eyes, red from lack of sleep. He had known. Maybe not the details, but he had felt something was wrong. "How long?" he asked. "Min-Soo, I can explain." "Do not say my name." His voice cracked on the last word. "Do not pretend you have the right to say my name." I wanted to reach for him. I wanted to tell him that the files I had copied did not change what I felt. But that was a lie, too. I had started this mission, hating him. Somewhere along the way, the hate had turned into something I did not recognize, something that made me hesitate when I should have run. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then back at me. "My men are on their way up. You have 30 seconds to tell me why I should not hand you over to them." 30 seconds. I thought about the women in the photographs. I thought about the dinners, the walks along the Han River, the way he laughed when I told a bad joke. I thought about who I had been before I met him, and who I was becoming. "I was hired to destroy you," I said, "but I fell in love with you instead. And now I do not know how to live with either truth." Min-Soo's expression did not change. He stared at me for a long moment, the silence between us filled only by the distant hum of the city. Then he stepped aside, leaving the doorway open. "Run," he said, "before I change my mind." I did not wait. I ran past him, down the hall, toward the emergency stairs. Behind me, I heard his phone ring again, and his voice, cold and professional, telling his men the floor was clear. He was covering for me. Even now, he was covering for me. I burst out onto the street, the cold night air hitting my face. My legs carried me forward without thinking, but my mind stayed in that room, replaying the look in his eyes when I said the truth out loud. I had come to destroy him. Instead, I had destroyed us both. As I stood before Min-Soo, the weight of my betrayal hung in the air like a challenge, daring me to make a move. His eyes, once warm and inviting, had turned cold and calculating, a reminder that the man I loved was also a powerful mafia boss. The choice he gave me was simple, yet daunting. Prove my love and loyalty, or face the consequences. I knew that choosing to fight for him would mean walking a treacherous path, one that would test my resolve, my courage, and my heart. The dimly lit room seemed to grow smaller, the shadows cast by the faint light making Min-Soo's figure appear even more imposing. I took a deep breath, the cool air filling my lungs as I steeled myself for what was to come. I chose to fight for him, to prove that my love was genuine, that my betrayal had been a misguided attempt to protect him. The journey ahead would be long and arduous, but I was determined to see it through. to prove to Min-Soo and to myself that I was worthy of his love and trust. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, the sound of my own pulse echoing in my ears as I waited for Min-Soo's response. As we worked together to bring down the corrupt elements within his organization, I discovered a strength and resilience within myself that I never knew I possessed. Min-Soo, too, seemed to find a newfound sense of purpose, his determination to clean up his organization and start anew, driving him forward with a passion and energy that was inspiring to behold. Together, we faced obstacles and challenges, our bond growing stronger with each passing day. We spent countless hours poring over documents, gathering evidence, and strategizing our next move. The smell of freshly brewed coffee and the sound of papers shuffling filled the air as we worked tirelessly to bring about change. The city around us was a kaleidoscope of sounds and smells, the hustle and bustle of Seoul's streets, a constant reminder of the world we were trying to change. We walked through the crowded markets, the smells of street food and fresh produce filling the air, the sounds of vendors calling out their wares and the hum of traffic creating a cacophony of noise that was both overwhelming and exhilarating. We sat in quiet cafes, the soft glow of lanterns and the gentle hum of conversation, creating a sense of peace and tranquility that was a welcome respite from the dangers and uncertainties of our mission. One day, as we walked through a particularly crowded market, Min-Soo took my hand, his touch sending a spark of electricity through my body. "I'm glad you're doing this with me," he said, his voice low and husky. "I don't know what I would do without you." As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, I realized that my initial mission had been misguided, that my heart had been right all along. I had been so focused on bringing Min-Soo down, on destroying the man I thought he was, that I had neglected to see the good in him, the love and the loyalty that he was capable of. And now, as I stood by his side, fighting for a common cause, I knew that I had found my true purpose, my true love. We would sit on the rooftop of Min-Soo's high-rise building, watching the sun set over the city, the sky ablaze with hues of pink and orange. "I'm sorry," I would say, my voice barely above a whisper. "I was so blind." Min-Soo would turn to me, his eyes filled with a deep understanding. "I know," he would say, "but you're not blind now. You see me, truly see me, and that's all that matters." The road to redemption was not an easy one, but with Min-Soo by my side, I felt a sense of hope and renewal that I had never thought possible. We were two broken souls, healing each other, finding solace in each other's arms, and as we walked hand in hand, the city lights twinkling like stars around us, I knew that our love was strong enough to overcome any obstacle, to redeem us both from the mistakes of our past. One night, as we walked along the Han River, the water glistening in the moonlight, Min-Soo turned to me and said, "I love you." His voice was filled with emotion, his eyes shining with tears. "I love you too," I replied, my heart overflowing with joy. In the end, it was not the betrayal that defined us, but the love and the sacrifice that we made for each other. We had found a way to overcome our differences, to forgive and to forget, and to build a new future together, one that was filled with hope and promise. And as I looked into Min-Soo's eyes, I knew that I had found my home, my heart, my everything. We would sit together in comfortable silence, watching the world go by, our hands intertwined, our hearts beating as one. The title of my story, "I Pretended to Love the Korean Mafia Boss, to Destroy Him, Then I Fell in Love," seemed like a distant memory, a reminder of the journey that had brought us to this moment. But as I looked at Min-Soo, I knew that our love story was only just beginning.